Okay, so green digitalization. It's a hot topic, right? But you're past the theory, you want to know how to make it work.
Absolutely.
So get this. We're diving into this really cool set of Danish Dialogue Cards.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those. They're great.
They're designed to get companies talking and, more importantly, acting on sustainability.
Yeah, it's a really refreshing approach. Instead of just, reading a textbook about sustainability, you have these beautifully designed cards that kind of prompt you with these targeted questions.
Very hands-on, very Scandinavian, and they get right to it, defining green digitalization as, like, weaving sustainable practices into every single part of your business.
Exactly. And using digital tech to do it. It's about finding those leverage points where technology makes the biggest difference.
Right. This isn't just about, like, swapping out your light bulbs for LEDs. We're talking about using data and tech to fundamentally rethink how your business operates.
It's a whole different ballgame. For example, imagine using AI to, say, optimize your delivery routes and cut down on fuel consumption, or implementing paperless processes to, minimize waste.
That's green digitalization in action.
Exactly.
And those Danish cards, they don't mess around. One of the first cards just throws down the gauntlet. It asks which technologies have the biggest potential to boost sustainability in your specific industry. Like, they're not letting you off easy with some vague, generic answer.
No, they're making you think specifically about your business, and I love that.
Me too. They even use the example of AI and the Internet of Things, like completely revolutionizing energy management.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about smart energy systems that can automatically adjust energy usage based on real-time demand. Imagine a system that factors in things like weather patterns to optimize efficiency.
Okay, that's seriously cool. But I bet some listeners are thinking, hold on, this all sounds really expensive. New tech, AI experts, how do I even make a business case for this?
That's the thing. The cards address those barriers head on. They're not just about pie-in-the-sky ideas.
Right, they're grounded in reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They even have a card that tackles upskilling employees to handle these new technologies, which, let's be honest, that's a big one for a lot of companies.
For sure. But what I really like is they don't just present the problem, they offer solutions. Like, they talk about using benchmarking data to figure out exactly where you stand, compared to your competitors, and to track your progress.
Right. That data-driven approach makes this whole green digitalization thing feel a lot less overwhelming and a lot more like a strategic roadmap,
Yeah.
You're not just guessing, you're making decisions based on evidence. And speaking of data, these cards, they're big on using data to make smarter decisions about your partners, too.
Yeah, you know what they say? You're judged by the company you keep.
Exactly. And one card even puts it right out there. It asks, how does your company use data to choose and evaluate sustainable partners? Like, imagine having access to a potential partner's sustainability track record.
Yeah.
You can see their environmental impact, their commitment to ethical sourcing, even things like employee satisfaction scores.
No more relying on, like, glossy brochures and marketing fluff.
Right. You see the data for yourself.
I like it.
And it's not just about vetting potential partners either. The cards also want you to think about, like, collaborating with partners to develop even more sustainable products and services.
Okay, I'm with you. So, like, instead of just choosing a supplier based on, say, the lowest price, you're thinking about their environmental impact too.
Exactly. Or even better, imagine partnering with, say, a green tech startup that's come up with some cutting-edge solution for reducing water consumption in manufacturing.
Right. Like a company that makes those high-efficiency washing machines, they team up with a fabric softener company to create a formula that gets your clothes just as clean but with way less water.
Exactly. Combining your strengths to create products that are better for everyone. Speaking of products, this other card asks, how does your company use data collection and analysis in the design process?
Yeah, data analysis can sound kind of intimidating.
Right. But their example makes it so clear. They talk about using customer behavior data to design products that are just inherently more energy efficient.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
So instead of just assuming how people are using your products, you're actually collecting data on their usage patterns. Like, imagine a company that makes those smart thermostats using data to figure out how to tweak those settings to save energy while still keeping people comfortable.
It's about those little tweaks that make a big difference.
For sure. But how do we know if any of this is actually working? I mean, we can talk about AI and data all day long, but we need to see results, right?
Oh, absolutely. And the cards totally get that. They really hammer home the importance of not just measuring your sustainability efforts, but actually communicating them effectively.
Right? Like one card even goes as far as asking, how does your company use data to measure and report on the effectiveness of your sustainability initiatives? Like, put your money where your mouth is, right?
Right. And get this, they give the example of using IoT devices to measure real-time reductions in energy consumption. So you're not just looking at yearly reports. You can see your progress as it
Yeah, it's
happens.
pretty powerful stuff.
It is. You have a live dashboard showing your environmental impact. That kind of transparency is not just good for the planet, it's good for business. It builds trust with consumers, with investors, even with your employees.
Transparency and data-driven accountability, I love it. But let's be honest, not everyone's a data scientist. So how do we make these metrics, like, understandable, relatable?
That's where good communication comes in. Another card asks, how does your company use analytical tools to measure and improve sustainability performance?
Okay, analytical tools? Now that sounds a little jargony.
Right. But then they give this example that everyone gets. They talk about using data analysis to track simple things like water and energy consumption.
Right, so you can actually see, hey, we're using way more water than other businesses in our industry. Let's figure out why and what we can do about it.
Precisely. You get
Yeah,
that objective perspective, and that can be really powerful in driving change.
totally. I'm really picking up on a theme here with these cards. They're weaving together those ethical considerations with the realities of, actually running a business. Like this one card that asks, how does your company ensure that its sustainability initiatives actually comply with ethical guidelines?
It's not enough to just go green. You got to do it the right way.
100%. And their example is so on point. We have a code of ethics that includes things like fair working conditions.
Because remember, green digitalization isn't just about the environment. It's about social responsibility, too.
Absolutely. And they don't let you forget it. Another card pushes this idea even further. It asks, how does your company ensure that its partnerships respect those same ethical principles?
I love that they go there
Mm.
because it's easy to, talk about sustainability, but it's much harder to make sure everyone you're working with is actually walking the walk, too.
Right, you got to walk the talk. And this next one, this is an interesting. It asks, how does your company ensure the ethical use of data in your success measurements?
Oh, that's a big one these days. With all the data we're collecting, it's more important than ever to be ethical about how we use it.
And their example is simple but important. We anonymize data to protect personal information while still measuring effectiveness.
Exactly. Transparency is key, but so is respecting people's privacy.
Totally. And speaking of data privacy, these cards aren't shying away from some of those potential pitfalls of, relying so much on technology. Like one that asks, how does your company handle ethical dilemmas that come up when you're implementing new technologies?
Ooh, that's a good one. Because it's not always clear cut, right? There can be unintended consequences.
For sure. And the example they give is really thought-provoking. We involve stakeholders in decisions about IoT monitoring. So it's not just like the tech team making those decisions in a vacuum.
It's about having those conversations, considering the ethical implications before you just dive in head first.
Finding that balance.
Exactly. Innovation and responsibility. And that brings us to something else these cards hit on. Cybersecurity.
Right. Because what good is all this data if it ends up in the wrong hands?
Exactly. And they're not messing around. One card asks, how does your company ensure cybersecurity in your sustainability projects?
And I bet they have some pretty specific advice.
Oh, yeah. They give the example of using encryption and network segmentation to protect data.
Because a data breach that could be a disaster for your business and for your sustainability efforts.
Absolutely. And that's why they have a card specifically about the challenges of implementing those security measures. It's one thing to say we need to be more secure, but it's another thing to actually do it.
It's an ongoing process, right? And the threats are always changing.
Exactly. You've got to stay vigilant.
For sure. Well, I've got to give it to these cards. They don't let you off easy.
Not at all. They really make you think through all the angles of green digitalization.
They do. And we've covered a lot of ground already, but there's still more to explore. And we are back for our final deep dive into these awesome Danish dialogue cards.
They're really thought-provoking, aren't they?
Totally. And in this last part, we're looking ahead. We've talked about leveraging tech, picking the right partners, the ethical stuff, but now it's all about the future.
And the future is looking pretty data-driven.
Right. One card that really stood out asks, how does your company use forecasts to prepare for future sustainability challenges? Like, they're not messing around.
No, they're not. And the example they give is wild. We use climate modeling data to predict changes and adapt our business strategies. Climate modeling. It's like something out of a movie, but it's real.
Okay, so before we get too far ahead of ourselves, break it down for me. How can businesses actually use climate modeling, like practically?
Okay, so picture this. You're a clothing manufacturer, right?
Right.
And you've got access to these climate models that are predicting, say, longer, hotter summers in certain regions.
Okay, I'm following.
So you can use that information to make changes to your production. Maybe you start focusing on lighter weight fabrics, or you partner with a tech company to develop clothes with, like built-in cooling technology.
So you're not just reacting to the weather anymore, you're actually anticipating it
Mhm.
and making decisions based on like hard data.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just the weather. Climate models can help businesses anticipate things like resource scarcity or shifts in what customers want. They can even help you prepare for supply chain disruptions caused by those crazy weather events we've been seeing.
It's like having a sneak peek into the future of your business.
Right. You can adapt and thrive even as the world changes around you.
I like it. And speaking of the future, these cards, they do not disappoint. They've got a whole section on artificial intelligence, and let me tell you, it is not just hype.
AI is where it's at.
For real. One card asks, how does your company use data analysis and AI to improve your sustainability efforts? And their example, it just blew my mind.
Lay on me.
They talked about a company using AI to optimize water consumption in their production, like using predictive analysis to see potential problems before they even happen.
It's incredible what you can do with AI. Imagine an algorithm that's analyzing data from sensors, all along the manufacturing line.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
It can pick up on these tiny variations in pressure, temperature, even vibration. That might mean there's a water leak about to happen.
So instead of waiting for a huge leak that wastes tons of water, they can just like nip it in the bud.
Exactly. And that's just the beginning. AI can do so much more than just prevent leaks. We're talking about algorithms that can optimize energy use in buildings, design more sustainable packaging, even monitor deforestation in real time.
It's like having a whole team of sustainability experts working around the clock, just analyzing data and finding ways to reduce your impact.
Exactly. It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
Hmm.
But with all this talk about data and AI, we've got to talk about the ethical side of things.
Right. Are we getting a little too carried away with all this tech?
It's a valid question.
Hmm.
And the cards address it head on. Like one card goes straight there. How do you ensure the ethical use of AI and data in your sustainability efforts? That's a conversation every business needs to be having.
Totally. And while we're on the topic of responsible use, what about cybersecurity? All this data, all these systems talking to each other, how do we keep it all safe?
You're preaching to the choir. The more we depend on these digital systems for sustainability, the more important it is to protect them.
And I'm sure these Danish cards have something to say about that.
Oh, they definitely do. One card asks, what steps are you taking to ensure the cybersecurity of your green digitalization initiatives? They're big on strong security protocols, regular audits, and training your employees.
Security is a team effort, right?
Always. You can never let your guard down.
For sure. Well, one thing's for sure, these dialogue cards, they don't mess around.
Not at all. They push you to really think through all the angles.
They do. And we've done a lot of thinking in this deep dive. We've covered so much ground, from the basics of green digitalization to AI and all this data. But hopefully it's given you some ideas, some inspiration to think differently about how your business can use tech for a more sustainable future.
Because it's not just about doing good for the planet. It's about doing good business. In a world that's all about data and sustainability, those who can bring those two together, they're the ones who are going to come out on top.
That's a wrap on this deep dive.